Hello and welcome to another episode of the Business of Business podcast. I'm Roy. We appreciate you joining, and this podcast is dedicated to our solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, and small businesses. We like to bring you new and innovative ideas and also provide you with solutions to problems that you may be having in your normal day-to-day businesses. So today we've got a great guest. We're going to talk about some very important stuff. His name is Charles Reed. He is a certified public accountant, also a U.S. tax court practitioner, and a member of the Internal Revenue Service Advisory Council, and the founder of GetPayroll. Mr. Reed's companies have provided full service payroll services, payroll tax services, and other payroll-related services since 1991. Charles is also an accomplished senior executive and entrepreneur with more than 50 years of financial leadership experience in a broad range of industries and author of 4 books, the most recent being the Payroll Book, a guide for small businesses and startups. Charles, thanks so much for taking time out of your day to be with us.
Roy, my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
You know, I know that 2020, I'm sure, has been a challenging time. Payroll taxes, I speak from the olden days, back when we had to calculate them by hand and then dial them in with the phone. I know things have gotten a lot easier where you could be a lot more accurate, but I'm sure this year has been a year for the books for people in the payroll business.
Oh, absolutely. All the changes that have happened and the continual changes, when they first put in the PPP program, they changed it probably twice a week for months, and they're still changing it on how to get your forgiveness and so on. It's been a very interesting year. Frankly, payroll really changed starting with President Obama, and he did lots of tax changes and lots of payroll changes for 8 years. We didn't have as much under Donald Trump until this last year, and it's just gone absolutely insane. And we're expecting more changes in the following years, on and on and on. And taxes are going to go up, payroll taxes, unemployment's going to go up. It's a very interesting time, and it's probably not going to get less interesting.
Right. Yeah, and I know there's not, I don't want to dwell on the past because there's not much, unless people are in trouble trying to work their way out. We want to talk about some things that are upcoming. One thing I did hear or have heard, I just want to get a clarification, are that there were some deferred payroll taxes. And correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I heard this wrong, but I just want to be clear on that word deferred, because sometimes people don't understand that and think that that means that they will never have to pay it. But deferred typically means that it's been moved out to some point in the future.
President Trump issued an executive order allowing employees and employers to defer the FICA taxes for literally the last 4 months of this year.
Okay.
But they had to be repaid in the first 5 months of next year. Okay, by the employee, supposedly. The problem with that was the employer was on the hook. If he allowed his employees to defer taxes and then they quit, got laid off, died, whatever, he was still on the hook, the employer, for paying those deferred taxes.
Wow.
So none of my clients allowed their employees to do it. In fact, probably the only place that it was widespread was the federal government, because President Trump could insist that the government agencies do it for their employees. The rest of us said, this isn't a big deal. It's not a lot of money. It's deferred for a short period of time. And as the employer, I'm not going to take the risk.
Right.
Unemployment's rampant. We get another uptick in COVID like we're getting now, and we may have to lay everybody off and close it down again, and then we have to pay it back.
Right.
And if we don't pay it back, penalties and interest.
Right.
IRS is not known as a forgiving agency, I promise you.
Exactly. Yeah, they're, yeah, we had a time where we made like it was like a 7 cent, 8 cent mistake, and they didn't call you up and say, hey, it's just 7 cents between friends. Why don't you just not worry about it? They were like, if you don't get that 7 cents to us pretty quick, it's going to turn into a $5 bill.
Yeah, exactly.
So, do we have any? I guess there's guys, and I do want to make this point about payroll, because I say this about my taxes all the time, is that I can do taxes, I can even do my payroll, but the good thing about having professionals like yourself is that there's always guidance, and there's always changes coming out through the year. And I think that's where you get your money's worth with the professional, because you're on top of these things that I may have to sit down every end of quarter and try to think, okay, what's the new change? What's this? And that's your business, and you stay on top of it.
Yeah, if you know about it. Now, for our clients, we send out stuff all the time.
Yeah.
I'm on the IRS Advisory Council for the last 3 years. We're involved in a lot of things, some of which are, confidential still, but like the new NEC form that's effective January 1 of this coming year. Mm. You no longer, for non-employee compensation, use the 1099 miss. You use the 1099 NEC.
Okay.
Well, if you're not reading the trades, you may not know it.
Yeah.
And if you file the 1099 miss, the government's just going to send them back to you, and by then you're late.
Yeah.
So you have penalties.
Yeah.
So having a professional, I've done other things in my life. I used to do a lot of accounting and tax work for individuals and corporations. I don't do that anymore because I can't keep up on employment taxes and payroll changes and all the things that go with it and all the related stuff, and keep up with corporate taxes. I used to be an investment advisor. I can't keep up with the market,
right,
and keep up with payroll. So right. How do you expect a businessman who's making widgets or repairing cars or baking cakes or whatever to keep up with things it takes me full time to keep up with?
Right.
So we tell our clients all the things that are going on, keep them up to speed, and protect them. So when we go to file in January, their 1099s, we'll use a 1099 NEC.
Right.
We've got it set up. We've got the format for it. We can print it out on the right paper and envelopes and so on. They don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
We also know where to send it, and we know when to send it. The deadlines changed last year. Used to be you had until the end of March to send electronic W-2s. Well, last year it became January 31. If you were still working on the old rules, you were late and there were penalties.
Yeah, and so, I'm like an old dairy cow. I just go to the barn, same path to the barn, and I walk into the, the office supply and just pick up the 1099 miss like I have for every year before. So I'm that guy that you're speaking to now for sure.
No, and look, a lot of my clients are that way. They're busy people. Right. They've got businesses to run.
Right.
They're entrepreneurs. They're small businesses. These people, you know it.
Yeah.
70-hour work week. Oh God, that's an easy week.
Yeah.
Okay, only 70 hours this week. Wow.
I had time to eat a couple meals.
Vacation time.
That's right.
So my clients don't have time. As business people don't have time to keep up with these ancillary things. That's why you outsource. Right. I mean, look, you can make your own paper. Do you know anybody that does?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
I mean, you can make your own ink. You can build printers. You can build computers. I don't. I call Dell.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. They deliver the next day or two. So, outsourcing payroll, like outsourcing tax prep, outsourcing a lot of things, just makes sense in this day and age. We're not living on the frontier where we have to do everything.
Right.
Make our own clothes, cure our own food, shoot our own game, plow our own land, build our own houses. We don't do that anymore.
Right.
Doing payroll yourself. My father used to do payroll on hand-created mimeographed. Remember mimeograph machines?
Yes.
Mimeographed sheets of paper. And after I became a CPA, I finally got him to start doing some of these things more electronically, and very late in life, actually got him onto a computer to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And it's just silly for the pittance to outsource payroll to do it.
Yeah.
And you can't keep up on it. You cannot keep up on it.
Yeah,
and that's our specialty, is compliance.
Yeah, and the other thing, just to reiterate, is sometimes these are deadly mistakes, and I've read, we had a couple businesses that around here close that got into trouble with payroll, and it put them out of business. So I mean, it's not,
Yep.
a lot of times it's not something that you can recover from. But anyway. So let's talk about some things. Have you kind of got, besides the 1099, have you got some other things that for sure are going to be changing early in 2021?
Well, unemployment rates are going to go up. I've seen a lot of them. Some of them are getting delayed here in Texas. They're delaying it until February to announce it.
Okay.
But I've seen base rates go up as much as 500%.
Wow.
Minimum payments. New Hampshire minimum payment went up 500% for 2021 over 2020.
Okay.
And this, as the unemployment rate stays up, this is going to happen everywhere. Everybody's basically going up, both in rates and in limits. On top of that, starting in 2022, at least 22 states and probably more will hit the FUTA credit reduction, which means that your FUTA tax is going to go up. Normally you get a substantial deduction against the regular FUTA rate. Well, it's going to go down. It goes down by 0.2% every year that your state still owes money that they borrowed for their state unemployment fund. So that's going to happen. The Taxpayer First Act is being worked by the IRS and going into place. The appeals section is going to change some. They're trying to become, based on congressional intent, a kinder, gentler IRS.
Right.
Well, we tried this about 10 years ago and it didn't work either.
Right.
So don't expect a kinder, gentler IRS. It's not going to happen.
Right.
The IRS is making a major push again in technology. So expect disruptions there, because the last time they did that, they spent $3 billion and gave up.
Wow.
But some of their technology runs back to the 1960s, and it's past end of life. Nobody is maintaining it except the IRS. And so they've got to do some things to bring that up to speed. 40% of the IRS people will be eligible for retirement in the next 2 years.
Interesting.
Not retire, but eligible.
Yeah.
So they don't have the funds to hire and train the people they need to. So service there is going to get worse and more ignorant.
Right.
That's just going to happen. The states are not in much better shape. Right now, you have all the state bureaucrats at home getting full pay and working half-time on their phone, if you can get a hold of them.
Right.
I don't see that getting better until mid next year. And then they'll come back and have to retrain most of them. And they're not going to be, this was something that came up in a webinar the other day, or a blog. A lot of these people have now found that they can work effectively from home, and micromanagers are going to be really, really hard pressed to manage these people who've been working from home for months or a year.
Right.
Hey, Joe, I've been doing this stuff from home. You don't need to tell me what to do.
Right.
You haven't looked over my shoulder for a year. Quit doing it now.
Right.
It's going to be a major change. Then there's going to be a lot of changes in the economy. People are used to working at home. I just heard on NPR the other day, the major real estate investment this last year in 2020 was in warehouses, not in office space, for the first time in decades.
Right.
Because we're all on the web, shopping on the web. We don't go to brick and mortar. All that's changing. Life's changing. Payroll's changing. There'll be other tax law changes. Of course, the progressive wing of the Democratic Party has promised all kinds of things. Minimum wage is changing everywhere. Every place that's allowed to change the minimum wage is changing it. In Texas, Dallas tried to change it, and the state said, no, it's a state minimum wage. You don't get to mandate it. And that would have been disastrous, because what happens if you have a company and you have people that work part-time in Dallas and part-time in Mesquite or in Frisco? You got to pay them different minimum wage when they're in Dallas.
Wow. Yeah, I never
Part
thought
of the
about
day.
that. Yeah.
Come on, it gets insane.
Yeah.
The minimum wage when in Seattle, when across the city line, the restaurants pay $7 or $8 less an hour to their people. Do you think their prices are cheaper? Of course they are. So, the dislocations this causes. I wouldn't be surprised to see a $15 minimum wage come in, and your McDonald's meal. Mine at Burger King is $5, $4.95. I get the double bacon cheeseburger and the value fry. Okay, that's going to go from $4.95 to $9.95.
Yeah,
that's how. And this thing that people don't realize: 75% of all federal revenue comes through payroll.
Okay.
75% flows through the payroll department. Okay, because it's all the withholding and all the employment taxes and all the Social Security, all the Medicare, it all flows through payroll.
Yeah.
75% of it. So if you want to affect tax revenues, screw with payroll.
Yeah.
And politicians are going to do it.
Yeah.
This is going to be a very interesting year. We still have a Democratic House. Who knows what's going to happen with the Senate? If that goes Democratic, a lot of the progressive agenda will go through, and that'll be a lot of tax changes and a lot of rollback of the 17 tax change. Talk about regulation. The regulations on the 2017, the December 17 Tax Cut and Jobs Act, final regulations aren't written yet. They're still being written 3 years later.
Yeah.
And it's going to be another year or two before they're all finalized. And if we go and change it back or rechange it again next year, the IRS doesn't write regulations overnight. It takes time. And it takes experience, because anything Congress does that increases taxes, there's tens of thousands of people like me out here trying to figure a way around it.
Yeah.
Okay? And when we find it, we implement it, and the IRS then has to write regulations to eliminate that loophole. Then we find another one. Right. They write regulations. We find another one. And it goes on for years to try and get congressional intent, because congressional laws are very poorly written for implementation. They're ideas, they're concepts, they're guidelines. They're not hard and fast regulations for 330 million people.
Right.
And 5 million, 6, 8, 10 million businesses. They can't write them for that. Yeah. That's the IRS's job, Treasury's job, and it's a bear, let me tell you.
Wow. Yeah, can't even believe that they're still trying to write the 2017. Unbelievable.
Yep.
So does that, since such a big portion of the federal income is from the payroll tax, do you anticipate an increase in that to try to make up for some of this spending that they've had to do during COVID, or do you think that they'll just pay it off over the years? Or
well, they're going to have to do both, but the idea, well, let's tax the rich, guys, it doesn't work. There's not enough rich out there that make enough money. You can steal everything from them, and it's not going to make that big of an impact.
Right.
Literally, you can take the top 10,000 richest people in the country and seize their wealth, and it's only their wealth, not their income, but their wealth. Okay, Visa's $100 billion. You take all of that, it's only going to run the company for a couple of months. The country.
Yeah.
Okay, it's just not that much money. It has to come from us, the middle class, the people that work for a living, the people that have small businesses, people that work in them. You can't. The poor people, they're not paying taxes, okay? Right. And that's progressive tax system. Whether you want to talk about Romney's 47% or whatever, I don't care. But the middle class is where it's going to have to come from, because that's where the vast majority of income is.
Yeah.
It's, there's a few people at the very top that make obscene amounts of money. I wish I was there, okay? Don't we all? But there's not enough taxes there to make a real difference. That's a political nonsense.
Yeah.
It has to be middle class. You can't say, well, we're only going to raise taxes on those that make $400,000 or more. You can take everything they make. It's still not enough to make up the budget shortfall. So what are you going to do? Lower it to 200, lower it to 100, lower it to 50? Yeah. That's what's going to happen. Everybody's taxes are going to go up if they're going to pay down the debt. And of course, this year we've just boomed the debt. I mean, when you talk a $3 trillion stimulus package, that's $10,000 for every man, woman, and child in the country. Wow. That has to be paid back sometime.
Right. Yeah, and I don't think we're stopped.
Give me a break.
I don't think we're through with that. It's just going to continue. It's got to for a little bit longer anyway. So that kind of brings up a good point, thinking about these maybe people that have lost their job or have gotten cut back so far that they've decided to step out on their own. Maybe you can just kind of speak just to a little bit about the difference between working for a company and having these things deducted versus working for yourself and trying to make your estimated payments when necessary.
Well, I refer to them as accidental entrepreneurs.
Right.
They're out of a job. They're out of a company. They got to make a living. They've got to put food on the table. They got a wife to take care of, or kids, or themselves. Mm-hmm. So they're going to find a way to make money. They're going to do it. We're getting a lot of new entrepreneurs in the door to help them with payroll. Yeah. Okay? Because if you form a corporation or an LLC that files as a corporation, you're an employee and you have to have W-2 compensation. You don't have a choice. Okay? And if you hire somebody, you hire a girl and you're a lawyer, you hire a lady in the office, you gotta pay her. You can't just pay her under the table.
Right.
It's illegal. It works until you piss her off and she goes down unemployment and files.
Right.
And then the auditor comes out a week later and the penalties and interest add up in a hurry. So don't do that. Please don't do that. Call me.
Yes.
So we're seeing a lot of that. And here's the problem, and the IRS sees it. If you're a W-2 where they withhold the money and give you a W-2 and report it to the government, compliance is about 99%. If they report like a 1099 but don't withhold, compliance falls to about 97%. But if you don't withhold the taxes and you don't report the income to the government as a sole proprietor or a business owner, compliance falls to 37%.
Wow.
That's why the government goes after it. That's where the tax gap is. The tax gap in the gig economy is huge.
Right.
Okay? That's why they put in the 1099-K to force Uber and Lyft and people like that to report all the money they collect and distribute to their drivers and their gig workers. Right. But there's so much gig economy out there.
Yeah.
Whether it be the lawn guy, the window washer, the guy that comes paints the building, the guy that does your garage floor, the mobile dog groomer, you name it.
Right.
There's a million of those. And that just exacerbates the tax gap because these people should, in many cases, be on a W-2 and or file estimated taxes, and they don't because it's easy not to.
Yeah.
If you don't make that estimated tax deposit, the IRS is not going to call next week and say you're past due.
Right.
Your electric company will, your phone company will, your mortgage company will, but the IRS won't. They're not going to be in your face.
Yeah.
Okay. You don't pay your car payment, 60 days later, the repo guy is coming to take the car.
Right.
Okay. You don't pay your tax deposit, that may not catch up with you for several years. Okay. Or longer. But when it does, it's going to be massive. Right. It's going to be the deposit. It's going to be the penalties. It's going to be the interest. And the IRS can take your car, take your house, take your income, literally take the clothes off your back.
Right.
I had one agent, collection agent. I was in the next cubicle with a client, and he was telling the guy, well, you've got a gold tooth. Go down, have that tooth taken out, and pawn the gold.
Oh, my gosh.
Jesus Christ, people.
Oh, my goodness.
This is true. This happened.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm going, and I'm sitting there, and my client's looking at me going, get me out of here.
No kidding.
I mean, it was insane. But that's when you get down to collections at the IRS, they're collection agents.
Right.
And you don't want to get into collections, believe me, because they don't care whether you owe or not. All they're interested in collections is collecting the money.
Yeah.
That's all they're interested in. You can say, well, I don't owe this. See, I don't owe this. And the collection guy goes, I don't care. Write me a check.
Right. Yeah, and it's so important. And,
once you got out of exam and out of appeals.
Right. Yeah, it's so important. And, when I came off W-2 and went to, estimating my own, it's the best thing to do is to take a little bit out every time you collect money coming in. Just set it aside and have it there, because I will guarantee you that it will be such a snowball effect that, if you miss 1, 2, then all of a sudden you're trying to catch up at the end of the year. I mean, it's, from my understanding, most people just cannot overcome that. Or,
right.
The other thing I've heard is that it's best, if you do get into a little bit of a scrape, just address it, take your lumps, and move on, because it's not going to get any better. It's just going to be the taxes, interest, penalties, everything just keeps compiling, and then,
right.
You'll just have a bigger debt or payment to make. But anyway, we won't. Right. Won't get too far off track on that, but I just, a lot of people are making that transition, and I think it's important that there is a reckoning for money that you do bring in the door on your own. You do have to address that in some respect.
I'm only going to make one caveat. Don't set aside a little. Set aside a lot.
Well, yeah. Whatever
you can figure about 30% of what you take in, you need to set aside,
exactly.
maybe more.
Yeah.
So it's not $5.
Yeah, no.
It's 30%.
Yeah. No, I just
and have a CPA.
Right.
That a tax advisor you can sit down with at least once a year, and he can tell you how much you need to put away.
Right.
Now, if you miss one, that's fine. You'll get by with 1 or 2. You're right, exactly right. But if you do it on a regular basis and make a habit of it, it's going to solve it.
Yeah.
And if you do get in trouble, in the beginning, the IRS, they'll work with you. These are nice people for the most part. Stay out of collections, but exam and so on. You can set up installment agreements. You can do all kinds of things.
Right.
Just be reasonable with them. Talk to them. Treat them like they're human beings and not some government machine.
Right.
Don't swear at them. Don't scream at them. I amaze my staff. I'll be sitting talking with an appeals officer in New York, and she's close to my age, and we'll spend 20 minutes talking about grandkids.
Yeah.
Okay? And then when we're done and we need to come to this situation, and she has choices, she can say, yeah, that's reasonable. Let's go ahead and debate it. Or she can say, write me a check.
Right.
If you've been nice to her, she's far more likely to say, yeah, let's just debate it.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's her decision.
Yeah.
So why do you want to piss off somebody who can do you a favor?
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about the book. So what guidance or what have you put in the payroll book? There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
The Payroll Book, a guide for small businesses and startups. It's exactly what it's for.
Okay.
It's 30 years of experience distilled down to 85,000 words.
Okay.
It starts out with what the various entities are and, what the tax effects of having those entities are. It goes into what's an employee, what's a non-employee, what's an independent contractor, what's not, what are earnings, how you record them, deductions, taxes, tax penalties, all the tax laws and various other payroll-related laws, how to run a payroll, how to calculate it and get it out, how to do it exactly, record keeping, all the records you're required to keep for all the different federal agencies and state agencies, workers' comp, security, internal controls, illegal aliens, and other miscellaneous issues, including this cheat and PEOs and so on. It's not something you're going to sit down and read in a couple of evenings. It's a good thing to have on your bookshelf, because when a question comes up, if you're not using me or somebody like me, then it's a wonderful reference book. The nearest thing to that, and I'm in the industry, so I look at them. is the source, the payroll source. It's available from the APA for $595.
Wow.
This is list price on it is $29.95. I think Amazon has it on for like $23.25 at the moment. It's a really nice payroll reference book.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, what can a company like GetPayroll, number one, what can you do for employers, of course, and then also how do you differentiate yourself from some of the bigger players that are out there in the field?
Thank you for that question.
Yeah,
Roy.
yeah.
All of the payroll companies, for the most part, do a reasonably good job of creating paychecks or direct deposits, okay? And most of them do a reasonably good job of depositing taxes and filling out forms for you. Prices vary and amount of services vary. But where the real problem comes in is compliance. When you make a mistake or the IRS makes a mistake, and believe me, the IRS makes millions of mistakes every year. You got 100,000 people and technology going back to the 1960s. Mistakes are going to happen.
Right.
What do? We're compliance experts. I'm a CPA. For every client, we take a 2848 limited power of attorney. That allows us to advocate directly with the Internal Revenue Service and the various states and the various other agencies. We can represent the client ourselves. We can go to them and talk to them and make deals and make arrangements. And so the IRS then has a professional that knows as much and in many cases more than they know, because I know the law, I know the regulations, I know the IRS manuals, I know what they're allowed to do, I know what they're not allowed to do. The analogy I use for the poor businessman, and I've been there, is if you take the greatest Brazilian soccer player you can think of, in my day and age, it was Pelé. Mm-hmm. Tremendous athlete, wonderful soccer player. And you stick him in a New York Yankees uniform and you put him in Yankee Stadium and you say, play second base.
Right.
He doesn't know the rules. He doesn't know the equipment. He doesn't know anything. He's still a great athlete, but he's out of his ballpark.
Right.
Okay. And he can't, he'll learn, but
right. At
what cost? So we do this for a living. This is what we do. We're compliance experts. That's why I'm a U.S. tax court practitioner. If the IRS gets too off base with it, for $60, I file a petition with the U.S. tax court, which stops everything, gets kicked back to docketed appeals, and I get a knowledgeable district counsel to sit down and discuss the situation with, not some collection agent, not some ignorant examiner, not some low-level clerk, not
right,
low-life,
right.
But low-level clerk. I'm talking with an experienced professional that has many years of experience in this and understands as much as I do. And we can come to an agreement. But if you don't have that, and I don't know of any other payroll company that does this, if you don't have that, what do? You're on your own.
Yeah.
We're insurance. We're payroll insurance. You insure your car, you insure your house, you insure your life. Hopefully your car doesn't get in a wreck and your house doesn't burn down and you live a long life.
Right.
But if something happens, that's what you have insurance for. Well, when a mistake happens with your payroll, we solve it.
Right.
One thing, I do want to make this point.
Yep.
The IRS cannot penalize you for a simple mistake. That's illegal.
Okay.
They can only penalize you for gross negligence. But guess who makes that determination up front?
They do.
You don't.
Yeah,
they
right.
do.
Exactly.
And they're going to determine gross negligence. So you have to be able to show them legally, ethically, by the rules, by the regulations, by the court cases, that this is a simple mistake or it's their mistake. And if you do that, it all goes away. But if you don't know how to do that, you'll never be able to do it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I've spent 30 years learning it. I learn more every day.
Yeah.
This is why I'm on IRSAC. I've met with I've met with the commissioner of the IRS. I've had lunch with him a couple of times in D.C. He eats at the employee cafeteria. I've met all the commissioners for the various sections of the IRS and their deputies and key people throughout.
Right.
So if I need to, I can call the chief of appeals and get some help. Do you even know his name? Sharon, who's head of OPR, is a friend of mine. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. Office of Professional Responsibility. These are the things we can do that most of our competitors can't, because we've concentrated on compliance, not just massive amounts of clients that we're running through, just to run them through.
Yeah, right.
So
and it makes a big difference to have somebody that, if you do get into a little scrape, to have somebody to be able to walk through the doors with you and to represent you and be there. So, well, let me ask you this.
When.
Yeah. So what if somebody that has not been your client, if there's somebody out there that is going through some troubles, can you help them, or do you really need to be involved?
Sure.
Prior? So if you,
I prefer to work with my clients that have been there, because we know what's going on. We have all the records and everything else.
Right.
But if one of your listeners has a problem, call me. Okay. If I can answer the question off the cuff, it's free. I'll just do it. I like helping people. Okay. If it's going to be more involved, we'll talk about it. We'll quote a fee, and we'll go after it.
Okay.
The earlier in the process you do it, the better.
Right.
The later it gets, the more things become irreversible.
Right.
There are some deadlines and some drop dead dates that are in the regulations, and the courts say, if you don't do it by this date, SOL.
Yeah, yeah.
You're just out of luck, and that's just the way to. Oh, but Your Honor, I don't know this. They say, well, yeah, but you had to do it by this date. That's the law.
Yeah.
And sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing,
there's nothing we can do about it. Talk to your congressman.
Yeah, the other thing, just to make clear as well, is that if it's somebody that you are already working with, you're already in their business, you know what's going on. If somebody that's in trouble comes to you, you are going to have to do some digging through to see what has happened in the past. So it's not just always as simple as, I'm in trouble, help me, let's move forward. I mean, it depends on how complicated things are, but there is going to be some due diligence that would have to go along with that, just to make that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there are, as I was saying, some problems, if you delay too long, that are insolvable.
Right.
They're just, you just have to chalk it up and as for experience, and know next time not to let the deadline lapse.
Right. All right, Charles. Well, thanks so much for this has been great information. We appreciate it, and probably at the end of first quarter next year, or if some big things come along, please feel free to reach back out. But we'll get you back on, and kind of keep the listeners updated as we go. So before I let you go, though, what is a tool that you use in your daily life, business, personal? It could be a tool, it could be a habit, something that you do every day that you don't think that you could do without.
Well, it goes back to, and this is how we do business. It goes back to an old saying, there's never a traffic jam on the extra mile.
Right.
We always try to go the extra mile for our clients, and they appreciate it because that's who we are.
Right,
that's my staff. It comes from the top. It permeates the organization. We bend over backwards for our clients. We believe in customer service. Yeah. That's how I was raised. My father had his own business. I was raised in a small business. I grew up in it. I didn't understand it when I was started, but you learn over time.
Right.
And so you take care of your customers, because that's who's paying you.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. That's good to know. So tell everybody how they can reach out, either get a hold of you or get payroll and get you started working for them.
Sure. Well, obviously, as you can see from the backdrop, GetPayroll. So it's getpayroll.com. We're all over there. The book's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble's, other fine bookstores, or at thepayrollbook.com. My email, cjr@getpayroll. You can email me there. And if it's something that you got to talk to somebody, 972-353-0000.
All right.
That's the phone number.
And we'll put all the contact information and the book in the show notes as well for all of our listeners.
Thank you very much.
You bet, Charles. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you taking time again. All right, that's going to do it for this episode of the Business of Business podcast. You can find us at, of course, www.thebusinessofbusinesspodcast.com. We are also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and we will post the recorded session on YouTube as well. We're on all the major platforms: iTunes, Google, Stitcher, Spotify. If we're not on one that you use, please reach out. I'll be glad to get us added. Until next time, take care of each other.